Staring up into the purple, dark California night sky, my fingers wriggle into my ears, blocking out the percussive blast and crash of a fireworks show. I watch glowing pieces fly up into the air and explode, flashing crimson across the humid night. Glimmering embers fall fast into ash. And all of this is reflected in my very thick spectacles, correcting my inadequate vision. And all of this is reflected in an enormous plate glass pool, sparkling along with the sky, a heavy, rippling pool with flat, smooth sides and water darkening with the dwindling light, otherwise known as Shamu's exhibition tank. Where just that day I'd seen a black and white killer whale unbelievably fly up into the air and unfathomably pluck a tuna fish from his trainer's hand, a killer whale, they said, named Shamu from the northern Pacific Ocean. I'm only 9, so I don't really understand the ocean. Being from Atlanta, dry, tarry, sunburned Atlanta, a city landlocked and bound in asphalt and kudzu, I don't have a sense of what the ocean is, and I imagine it's just one vast thing, all connected, so I don't understand how a whale can be from just one part. But here, in LA, in a chlorinated tank, surrounded by flat, smooth concrete, it seems Shamu's pretty far away from home. That night, from the corner of my left eye, I keep watch on my mother's bright white shorts next to me, but I'm not holding her hand because my fingers are in my ears. And when the show is over, I look to my left, and the woman in the white shorts is not my mother. She's another woman. She may not even be a mother, and my mother and my father and my sister are not there. I'm 9. I'm inexplicably already afraid of police. I cry and get help from a stranger, not a policeman, and they put me in the lost and found. Me, and the cameras, baseball caps and wallets and keys. They inventory me by eye color and hair color and skin color. I am at least 3,000 miles from Atlanta. I'm a very long way from home. And then my family burst through the office door, not very much later. Still, I've never felt so lost in my life. All alone, all at sea. Sea World. In the years since I first felt so truly lost, I've learned that the whale I saw was not the first whale named Shamu, that the whales kept at SeaWorld don't live as long as they do in the wild ocean if they survive at all. Being a long way from home, it seems, can be stressful for a whale. They might be a little lost at SeaWorld too. My grandmother was a young woman in 1942 when the Quit India movement began, and India and Pakistan and Nepal and Bangladesh's struggles for freedom from the British rumbled into existence. She'd had 2 kids already, both sons, and she'd developed a taste for liberation at an even younger age. When my grandmother was just a teenager, her parents died, so she moved from her tiny little one shared outhouse that was always locked at night village to live with her big brother in bigger Mumbai. And she flourished in that salty sea-bordered city where waves waft the stink of seaweed and old fish over Chapati Boardwalk. She spent time with her older brother and with his friends. She's never admitted to flirting with them, but I imagine the day that she asked her brother's best friend, Natvarlal, to teach her how to ride a bike. There must have been a hint of knowing. He taught her, though she wore a sari fluttering over her shoulder, her hair a braid as long as his arm. He taught her, though she was the first woman any of them knew who learned how to ride a bike. She fell in love with him, with Natvarlal, and she says he was too innocent to think of her that way. But he did agree to marry her once she asked, using her brother as a messenger. She rode a bike and she married for love. In 1930s India, my grandmother did the best a feminist probably could. Natvarlal and her brother and their friends, they spent time together. They talked about politics, India and Britain, what Britain took, what India is freely given, about taking it all back, The freedom, the tea, smaller things too, the jewels kept in British aristocrat homes, the holy icons and texts in British museums, the sacred animals in British zoos. An Asian elephant named Maharaja, languishing in Manchester's cool winters. My grandmother's 90 years old now, and she mostly lives in DC with my aunt. She keeps an oxygen tank by her side and tells me about those days when my grandfather knelt in the dark cellar under their apartment building, mixing up homemade dynamite. The days when my grandmother would deliver a box of groceries to a wealthy man's house and learn it had blown up later. This was obviously before they joined the nonviolent arm of the revolution, before they found Gandhi the way that other people find God. With the word of Gandhi in their hearts and in their hands, they sat and waited. While my uncles were arrested and beaten, they sat and waited for a new country with no blood on its streets, for a revolution to win, for the first generation to scream and kick and grow and fight and love under no empire. And they raised that generation, my mothers and my fathers, in that new country. And then they sent them away to flourish far from home because the revolution won, but it wasn't enough. New country still has blood on its streets, and the screaming and kicking still hurts. She's disappointed. This isn't what we fought for, she says. It was lost. At age 9, I have already been pledging my allegiance to a starred and striped banner that does yet wave for at least 4 years, and at school I learn about cherry trees and Paul Revere calling out what he never really called out. And because I'm Indian and because I'm American, I feel like I am well suited to revolution. It's in my blood, I think. It's in my blood, I'm told. Eventually, I moved to Australia, a strange migration to a young country forged of sandstone and prison boats, and living there, I realize I'm thrice colonized. I am the grand tour of the British Empire. It's a country that never had a revolution. I keep telling my new Australian friends, you should have one. It's a party. They are not interested, and they literally throw more pineapple on the Barbie. Not joking. They have beaches and mining and too much land and too little water, and they have their own cruel government doing ugly things to dark people. Australia, as every kangaroo knows, has its own evolutionary processes, and it simply cannot be bothered with getting rid of vestigial things right now. When I decide to move to Manchester, I worry it will be another strange migration, living in the seat of that deflated empire. Gandhi, my grandmother told me, wanted to free India of its dependence on Manchester, this city, and on Manchester, the cloth named after it. His revolution relied on other smaller revolutions. The wheel at the center of India's flag is a spinning wheel by which Indians were to make their own cloth. India's dependence, he thought, made it lose itself. Indians were to find their strength and find themselves again. 70 years since that revolution began, I'm staring at the skeleton of an Asian elephant named Maharaja. And I'm surprised to read of his strange migration. He arrived in Manchester, it says, by walking from Edinburgh. That he wandered the English countryside, separated from his family, feeling lost and alone. That he, who was held sacred in one of my homelands, arrived in Scotland's biting wind to be inventoried in a zoo by his species and his skin color and his age. That he left his warm monsoon home for the cold hail and drizzle of a gray, stony city goes unmentioned. He will never get back, and Shamu certainly won't. India may also be lost forever. Perhaps in finding itself, its people will stumble forever over their past mistakes, which are enough to keep them stumbling forever. And I realize they are all of them a very long way from home, and their families will never burst through that door. Thanks.